Hey, everybody, it's Lauren DeLisa Coleman for the Inside series here at Filmio, and I'm about to bring you another very cool interview, all during the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles. And so I have with me now Hena Ashraf, who is the filmmaker behind a film called The Return, which will be part of this fabulous festival. And we are lucky enough to steal a few moments of her time today and to be able to just hear all about this. So, Hena, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So let's start off, as we always do, with a quick synopsis of The Return.
The Return is a short documentary hybrid, very personal film in which I'm basically processing my relationship with my father after he passed away.
And so you're doing this through, not to give, too much away, you guys, but just for a little bit more depth, through camera and photos and kind of the exploration of all of this, correct?
So the film is it's a little unconventional in that it has many different layers that speak to each other. One being archival footage, but also me filming myself. And then there's reenactment scenes, and there's more to it, but for now I'll just say that. But what I was trying to do is I was trying to find ways of how can these different layers speak to each other and inform each other, and I think really tell my story, which was like at the time I was making the film in order to process my grief, really. So it's a very it's a very process-based film.
So tell me a little bit about how you, I guess, came, or maybe it just evolved organically, came to kind of the format, right? Because as you said, it is hybrid and it involves and pulls upon a number of different like kind of roots, which I think is very cool, right? It makes it very compelling and you can feel, just so much through it. I mean, you would have to be, I don't know, stone, to not have empathy, right? So tell me what was kind of going through your mind as you maybe were in pre-production and all.
So it happened by itself, really. I mean, I was actually working on another project, and this is actually my graduate thesis film at UCLA.
I was going to say, we would definitely want to get into your education as well, because you've been MFA from UCLA.
So I was actually working, I had a completely different thesis project, and my parents were traveling in India, like they were visiting family when my dad got very, very sick. And so me and my siblings were basically summoned to get to India if we wanted to see him. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. He passed away. When I came back to the States and, we brought back my mom, I knew instantly that what I was working on, was just going to be on the shelf, and I wasn't the same person anymore. And it was just really a shock, everything that happened. And as a creative and as a filmmaker, my films are really about what I'm going through at the time. So I knew I was going to be making something about me and him. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I just instinctively started to film myself, really, and to film me and my mum. And I had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do and how, with having these different layers speak to each other. I actually wrote a script because I'm from a narrative background. So writing a script is what I knew how to do. And it was both the easiest and hardest script I ever wrote. I wrote it in one weekend and it didn't really change after that, honestly. But within the script, I had written, what I knew of the archival footage and me filming myself and the reenactment scenes, actually. The hybrid part of it is interesting because people might think it's the reenactment scenes that are more fiction per se. I would say they're not actually. Like they're very verbatim. They're translated into English for the most part, but if people get to watch the film, I like them to think a little bit deeper about if this is a hybrid, what parts are potentially a bit more fictionalized. I think with it being a documentary, I mean, I feel like I do think that doc films are very similar to more straightforward, what we call narrative films, in that there is a story that's crafted, there's a story that's shaped and created that is made in the edit that potentially may not have existed at all before, So I think to me, the gray space between what we call fiction and nonfiction has been really interesting, and so I wanted to explore that, and I ended up starting that journey really with this film.
Just so fascinating. I mean, I could have, like a million questions. I know we've got to, keep it timed. Let's talk about, where were you actually born, Hena?
Oh, so I was born in London. So
okay, but
yeah,
your heritage is Indian, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was the scene like there, or what were maybe some of the, I don't know, the moments within like just your childhood experience and certainly growing up with those kind of two roots, if you will, of British and Indian, that you think maybe contributed to the making either of this film or just your approach to filmmaking overall?
I mean, I identify as being a migrant multiple times over, with having parents from India who moved to the UK, and then me and my siblings were born in the UK, and then we all moved to America. Like I moved to America when I was 9. And so, I've got ties to all these places, and I think it's just made for a very complicated existence that I'm trying to sort out. And so I realized actually during my time at UCLA that I want to be making films about migrants and what I call migrant life, just this continued experience of being a migrant, whether you choose to move, which is what my parents sort of did, or whether someone is forced to move, out of survival, like forced to migrate. And so, I mean, those are very different experiences, right? But I think migration is almost a near universal experience. It's, so many people migrate in so many ways, and so with my family and my parents, like having that history and then me having that history too, I think made things fairly difficult for our family in having to start over again and again. Like within each place we moved multiple times as well. And so that wasn't easy. And so I think a lot of the grief I had was trying to work through the feelings I had about my dad, about what we had to go through as a family as a result of the choices that he made, really. And then, in turn, what regrets do I have over my reactions to him or the way I acted towards him? And so I think in the return, those are the sorts of things that I was trying to work through at the time, and I think I'm still trying to work through, even though the film is thankfully done. But
right.
I think that is always like that's always going to be like an ongoing thing for me.
So interesting. Oh wow! Like I said, I have just like so many questions in my mind. Let's talk a little bit though more right now, maybe about your experience at UCLA.
Sure.
Just in terms of your education there and filmmaking, what have you enjoyed about it most? What do you feel that has, really just contributed to what, you're seeing as a firm foundation for you as a filmmaker, and why?
Yeah, I think the program was encouraging of us. This is going to sound cliche, but of us finding our voice. And I started making films when I was 16, and I started at UCLA when I was 30. Like I went to grad school way, way later than some other people, but I think it's good I did because I had some idea of like what I wanted to say, but as I continued, I realized more and more. Well, what I really want to talk about, yeah, are about migrants and migrant life, and what I really want to talk about is me. Like I'm someone. My films really reflect me, and they got more and more personal to the point where after my dad passed and I started working on The Return, I turned the camera onto myself, like that's how personal it became. And the school, I think they were really supportive of that, of kind of me just starting over on a new project really at the last minute, like it was my thesis year, and supportive of what I was trying to do. And
Hmm.
no one really I mean, it didn't really make sense on paper, and it didn't make sense for a good while, not until we got closer to picture lock way later. But, I felt like my professors and the staff, like, they could tell I was going through something and that I
Right.
was trying to express what I was going through by making the film. And so, I just kind of had to do it, and whether it worked or not, I just had to get it out of my system. And so I'm glad they didn't get in the way of that.
So, what was the reaction from your family?
They've seen it. They were, my immediate remaining family was some of the first people to see the fully finished film. That was last summer. We all got together after like 2 years because of the pandemic, like me and my brothers and my mum. Um, and I was really scared to show it to them because it's very raw. There's a lot of things about our family. They're all in it. They were okay with it. They were okay with it, and I think it actually helped our family. I think it helped start some conversations as well about some of the things we had been through, or like memories that we had. And so I think it was really good for us. And I remember thinking, like, even if no one else sees the film, like, at least it's done this for our family, like, it's created, like, this dialogue for us. And I think my brothers liked seeing dad on screen too, and I think for my mum, um, I mean, she's a very emotional, sensitive person, and I've definitely inherited that from her. But I think she understood me more as an artist and as a filmmaker, which, as an immigrant kid, I don't take for granted at all. I think it's really hard to get that, as a migrant, when you've got like working class parents who have moved so much because they want what's best for you, and then your kid goes into the arts, something extremely unstable.
Mm.
So it was really nice to like see her support of the film.
So interesting that you mentioned that because the Basquiat exhibit recently opened here. I'm going to say tomorrow it's 2 weeks. Well, tomorrow's 2 weeks before I was privileged enough to see it for a media opening, right before the general public. And I just hadn't known, which is the intent of this exhibit, is to personalize, right? The icon, to humanize, I should say, the
Yeah,
icon. And I had no idea that the relationship between him and his father was kind of very tense. There was a lot of love there, but also a lot of tension. Why? Because he was a Haitian immigrant
yeah,
who wanted the best for his children, and he worked within the financial
right,
sector. And so art, going into art, of course, not knowing what the future would hold, certainly, out generating, or revenue generating his whole family, not only just his father, but initially being able to do that can be very challenging. And so to have stories where people are discussing that, I think is very valuable, because for too long, the story has always just been about like the migrant just trying to, get enough money to like buy a home or whatever. Like that's the dream.
Yeah.
And that dream was very valid for, from before, but now that the next generation takes a different step, right? Or a greater step. So,
Right.
I think through your film that you're showing that. And I feel that as I'm so privileged to speak with different filmmakers, that this kind of idea or expansion of migrants and storytelling is really just expanding and in really interesting ways that I think are just super creative. So I'm very glad to see, your film, and I can't wait to see, what else just comes out of this mindset. Because your film is so personal, what do you hope people take away from it? And does that ever, or did it ever, I mean, I know that you said even if, nothing happens with the film, at least it's helped the family. But I would assume still in the back of your mind, whenever you're telling a story, you would like to have the largest, audience. So, and as your films become, more probably even more personal, as you said, that's your focus, and that's great. How do you balance that, I guess, is what I'm asking, Hena, maybe especially for those who are watching who maybe want to do the same type of thing too. You're showing it can be done, but not really knowing the complete response, right? So how do you both balance that, and what do you hope people take away from it if that balance is struck?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot actually the last few weeks. I guess I'll start with what I hope people get out of the film is I really believe in the specific being universal, and so even though my film, my story is very specific, I think there's a lot in there for people to connect to based on, what background they have, right? I mean, even just like someone who's a migrant or like from an immigrant family had issues with their dad, or shares any of the identities that I have, hopefully there's something in there they can connect to. As far as making very personal films, I mean, I hope I don't make another film actually like this. That's like where I'm in it or where I'm filming myself. I mean, I think it's really about, what is the story I'm trying to tell, and like how can, what methods or devices can I use to tell that story. And I think for this one, it's what I had to do, and it just kind of came of itself. Like it was very organic, but I think each film is going to be different. But yeah, I have been grappling a lot with the question, if I am going to be making, personal, unconventional films, whether I'm in them or whether I have characters who are acting out, versions of me, which is kind of what I've done before on the narrative side. Is anyone going to see them? That's that's a question I've had a lot, and so I'm really grateful for IFFLA programming the film, and the film premiered in India actually in November at a really great festival, the Dharamshala International Film Festival, and now it's playing at IFFLA, and it's got a few more festivals coming up, but it got a lot of rejections, and I know it's not an easy film to watch, and it's a very specific film. So yeah, I am grateful that it's getting seen at some places, but I've had to come to terms with like, I'm not. I don't think I turn out to be the kind of mainstream commercial director I thought I was going to be when I was 16 when I started out, but I'm really glad to be the filmmaker I have become, and I think this is the journey I'm on that I want to like continue to keep exploring.
And I think that that's so great, and it's no small thing that you are able to just do you, right, and just just decide whatever comes of it. I've already won because I'm doing what I feel is, honest for and to me. So I just wish you the best of luck with your career and much success at IFFLA. I hope that it's great for you and that you're able to also connect, with others while you're there and just, grow your network. I mean, I just think it's really amazing. So I want to just thank you again for taking the time. Oh, how can we keep up with you across social for like your next projects and all that? Are you
Sure.
active? And if so, what's like the best one?
I have an Instagram. It's just my name, Hena Ashraf _film. And yeah, that's where I post. I think any major updates on my films and things like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
Hannah,
you.
thanks for getting up crazy early as well in LA. I appreciate it.
All
All
good.
right. Well,
Yeah,
again, I hope the festival is great for you. Congratulations again. You
thank
guys, I
you.
hope that you've enjoyed watching this. I'm sure you can see that Hannah is somebody who's very, very unique in the storytelling space. So you can definitely follow her. And we will be bringing you even more interviews all during this IFFLA special series that we have. Thanks so much for watching. I am Lauren DeLisa Coleman for the Inside series here at Filmio.